The email landed in my inbox like a gut punch. Loan application denied. I stared at it, then at the bank's logo. This had to be a glitch. My grades were solid, my part time job history was impeccable, and I'd been saving for college since I was 14. I, Faith Harding, was 19 years old, and I did everything by the book. My whole life, I'd been the one trying to outrun the chaos of my family, and this loan was my ticket out. Before continuing, please share your location in the comments below. I called the bank, ready to unleash my most polite but firm I know my rights voice. The customer service rep, a guy named Kevin, sounded bored. He pulled up my file. Okay, Ms. Harding, let's see here. Ah, yes, it looks like your credit score is. Well, it's not good. Not good? I scoffed. That's impossible. I've never even had a credit card. Hmm, he hummed, typing. Says here you have a balance of $5,400 on a Saks Fifth Avenue card. That's a pretty big hit to your utilization. My stomach dropped. Saks Fifth Avenue? I'd never stepped foot in a Saks in my life. My idea of a shopping spree was finding a decent pair of jeans on sale. There must be a mistake. I don't have a Saks card. It's under your name and social security number, ma'am, Kevin said, his voice losing its bored edge and gaining a hint of suspicion. Opened in July of 2017. July 2017. I did the math. That was 7 years ago. I was 12 years old. The conversation with Kevin blurred after that. He started listing other accounts, a Nordstrom card, a Macy's, Best Buy. Each name hit me like a physical blow. By the time he was done, my head was spinning. 17. 17 credit cards, all opened in my name, starting when I was 12. The total debt was north of $50,000. $50,000 I didn't spend, didn't know about, and certainly couldn't pay. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. There was only one person who had access to my social security number, my birth certificate, everything when I was 12. One person who had always seen my existence as an extension of her own. I drove straight to my parents' house. The familiar scent of Gloria's expensive perfume hit me the moment I walked through the door. My mother, Gloria Harding, was 47, meticulously put together, always with her pearls and a glass of Chardonnay in hand, even at 3 in the afternoon. She was in the living room, scrolling through her tablet, looking like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. She looked up, a perfectly manicured eyebrow raised. Faith, darling, what a surprise. You look flustered. Flustered? My voice was tight, barely a whisper. I held up my phone, the screen showing the credit report summary. Mom, what is this? She glanced at it, her expression unreadable. Not a flicker of surprise, not a hint of concern, just nothing. What is what, dear? 17 credit cards, in my name. Opened when I was 12. $50,000 in debt. Saks, Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom, Macy's. Did you do this? The words felt foreign on my tongue, like I was speaking a language I didn't understand. Gloria took a slow sip of her wine, her gaze steady, almost serene. She set the glass down with a soft clink. Faith, she said, her voice smooth as silk, you think birth was free? The air left my lungs. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A chilling, matter of fact declaration that my very existence was a debt owed to her. My whole life, every meal, every school supply, every birthday present, it had all been a transaction. I stumbled backward, the phone slipping from my numb fingers to land silently on the plush carpet. The living room, usually a sanctuary of curated elegance, suddenly felt like a stage for a horror show. I turned and fled, not even bothering to pick up my phone. I locked myself in the bathroom, the cold tile against my back a small comfort. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes, wide and bloodshot, stared back. My face, usually so familiar, looked alien. Was this face even mine, or was it just a canvas for someone else's lies? Was my whole life, everything I thought I knew about myself, just a carefully constructed illusion, funded on a lie? And whose face really looked back at me now? I didn't pick up my phone from the living room floor. I just kept running, out the front door, to my car. My hands were still shaking as I drove to my apartment, the words, "You think birth was free?" echoing in my head. It was a cold, calculated answer, not a plea, not an apology. It was a justification. My dad, Daniel Harding, was 51. He was the kind of guy who'd rather walk through fire than deal with an argument. His whole life was about keeping the peace. I called him from my apartment, trying to keep my voice steady, but it cracked on every other word. Dad, I started, Mom opened 17 credit cards in my name. She admitted it. There was a long silence on the other end, punctuated by the faint sound of a TV. Then, his voice, slow and measured like he was talking to a child. "Faith, honey, are you sure you're understanding this correctly? Your mother, she wouldn't do something like that. Not intentionally." She said, "You think birth was free?" I practically screamed into the phone. "What part of that is a misunderstanding?" Now, don't be dramatic." He sighed, the familiar placating tone making my blood boil. "She's under a lot of pressure lately. Maybe she just borrowed your information for something, a temporary measure. You know how she gets with her nerves." "Borrowed? Dad, this is identity theft. $50,000. My student loan was denied because of this." "Look, let's just calm down," he insisted, already shutting down. "This is a family matter. We'll talk it out. Don't go doing anything rash. We don't need to involve outsiders, do we? You're overreacting." Overreacting. That was their favorite word for anything that challenged their perfect facade. Before I could even process that conversation, my phone buzzed with a call from my older sister, Zoe. Zoe, 22, had always been Mom's golden child, her mini me. She answered the phone with a sharp, "What the hell, Faith?" "What the hell what?" I shot back, my patience worn thin. "Mom just called me, crying. Said you're accusing her of God knows what. Are you seriously trying to ruin her? Ruin us?" "You're turning against the family faith. This is insane. You're going to destroy everything." "She stole my identity, Zoe. 17 cards. My credit is trashed before I even turned 20." "Oh, please." "So she used your name for a few things. Big deal. She's your mother. She raised you. You think you're so special, don't you? Always trying to be different. If you go through with this, Faith, if you even think about involving the police, I swear to God, I will cut you off. You'll be dead to me. You'll ruin the family name." The line went dead, my own sister threatening to disown me for wanting justice. It was a punch to the gut, but also a weird kind of clarity. They were all in on it, or at least they were all willing to protect Gloria at my expense. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my laptop, a cold anger settling deep in my bones. If no one else was going to help me, I'd help myself. I pulled up every free credit report site I could find. Each one confirmed the horror Kevin from the bank had laid out. I started meticulously downloading statements, looking for patterns, for anything that could be evidence. The dates of opening, the addresses used, all my parents' house, the spending habits, luxury goods, department stores, travel. It wasn't just a few things. It was a lifestyle. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't family, someone who wouldn't try to gaslight me. I called Miles Foster. Miles, 20, was my best friend, my rock. He was studying pre law, and his brain was wired for logic and fairness. "Dude, you will not believe this," I started, then spilled everything: the loan denial, the 17 cards, Gloria's chilling admission, Daniel's dismissal, Zoe's threats. He listened patiently, not interrupting, just a quiet, holy shit every now and then. When I finished, the silence stretched. "Faith," he said, his voice serious. "This isn't just a few things. This is a felony. You have to go to the authorities. Like, tomorrow." "But my family," I mumbled, even though the words felt hollow. "Your family did this to you," Miles said, his voice firm but kind. "They're trying to manipulate you into silence. You deserve justice, Faith. You deserve your future back. Don't let them take that from you, too." His words were a lifeline. He was right. I was tired of being gaslit, of being told my feelings were dramatic. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about facts. And my future? I closed my laptop, the screen reflecting my determined face. As I scrolled through the loan rejection emails one last time, a new notification popped up, stark against the white background. "Your Nordstrom card payment is overdue." I never had a Nordstrom account. The next morning, I walked into the police station with a folder full of printed out credit reports and that overdue Nordstrom notification still burning in my mind. The detective, a no nonsense woman named Detective Miller, listened with a calm, professional demeanor as I laid out the whole story. I told her about the loan denial, the bank call, the 17 cards, and Gloria's chilling, "You think birth was free" line. I even showed her the texts from Zoe and recounted my dad's dismissive attitude. "So, you're saying your mother opened these accounts using your identity? Starting when you were 12 years old?" Detective Miller asked, her pen poised over a notepad. "Yes," I confirmed, my voice steady now, fueled by a quiet rage. "And she admitted it." She nodded, then began listing them out, asking me to confirm each one. Saks, Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom, Macy's, Best Buy, Capital One, Discover, American Express. It felt surreal, like I was recounting someone else's nightmare. Each name was a fresh stab, a reminder of a betrayal that had been ongoing for 7 years, right under my nose. 17 betrayals, meticulously documented. The detective explained the process, the investigation, the potential charges. It was real. This was actually happening. I was filing a police report against my own mother. I left the station feeling a strange mix of dread and relief. The dread was for the inevitable family explosion. The relief was for finally taking a step, any step, towards reclaiming my life. The explosion came sooner than I expected. Less than 24 hours after I filed the report, my phone rang. It was Gloria. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, there was a knock on my apartment door. I peered through the peephole. It was her, and she wasn't alone. Daniel was with her, standing a few steps behind, looking uncomfortable. I opened the door, bracing myself. Gloria stood there, perfectly coiffed, wearing a silk scarf and a tasteful pearl necklace. Her face was serene, almost beatific. "Faith, darling," she purred, stepping inside without an invitation. Daniel shuffled in behind her, avoiding my gaze. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice flat. "We heard you've been making some accusations," Gloria said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "Accusations that could have very serious legal ramifications for you, Faith. Defamation, for one, spreading malicious falsehoods about your own mother." My jaw dropped. "Defamation? You admitted it. You said you think birth was free." "I said no such thing," she countered, her eyes wide and innocent. "You're clearly under a great deal of stress, Faith. Perhaps you misinterpreted a mother's loving concern for her child. We were simply discussing the costs of raising a family." Daniel finally spoke up, his voice low. "Faith, please. Your mother is very upset. This is getting out of hand. We just want you to delay any legal action. Let's talk this out as a family, calmly. No need to involve the police. It's just a misunderstanding, honey." "A misunderstanding that cost me my student loan and $50,000 in debt?" I scoffed. "No, Dad, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is a crime." Gloria stepped closer, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "You have no idea what you're doing, Faith. You're going to regret this. You're going to destroy this family, and it will be all your fault." She gave me a tight, saccharine smile. "Think about it, darling. Think about what you're unleashing." They left, leaving behind the lingering scent of her perfume and a fresh wave of nausea. The emotional toll started to heighten almost immediately. My phone, which usually buzzed with messages from cousins and family friends, went silent. Then the unfriending started. First, my Aunt Carol, then my cousin Sarah, then a few other distant relatives on social media. It was a coordinated effort, a silent shunning. They were circling the wagons around Gloria, and I was the outsider, the betrayer. It felt like a digital excommunication. Every time I scrolled through my feed, seeing their happy family photos, knowing I was being cut out, it stung. It was a calculated move to isolate me, to make me feel the weight of their disapproval. I was alone, except for Miles. He was the only one who didn't flinch, who kept reminding me I was doing the right thing. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. It was a voicemail from Gloria. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but laced with an unmistakable threat. "Sweetheart," she purred. You have no idea what you're unleashing. Gloria's voicemail, with its chillingly calm threat, replayed in my head for days. The silence from my extended family was deafening, punctuated only by Miles's steady support. I felt like I was walking through a fog, isolated and alone. Then a message popped up on my old Facebook Messenger account, the one I barely checked anymore. It was from Laura Hicks, my Aunt Laura. I hadn't seen Aunt Laura in years. She was Gloria's younger sister, 44 years old, and had been estranged from the family for as long as I could remember. My mom and dad always just said there was a falling out, a misunderstanding, and that Laura was difficult. I always got the impression it was something much deeper, a wound that never healed. Seeing her name after all this time sent a jolt through me. Faith, the message read. I heard what's happening. I think we need to talk. It's important. I know things. My heart hammered against my ribs. She knows things. Could it be about Gloria? About this pattern? I replied immediately, suggesting we meet for coffee. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town, far from any place my parents or Zoe might frequent. Laura looked tired, but her eyes held a fierce, familiar spark I recognized from old family photos. She ordered a black coffee, no sugar, just like I remembered. Faith, she began, her voice low. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I wish I could say I was surprised. I just looked at her, waiting. Gloria did the same thing to me, she said, her gaze fixed on her coffee cup. Years ago, when I was in my early 20s, just starting out, trying to get my first apartment, then eventually a mortgage. My breath hitched. She she stole your identity too? Laura nodded, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Not 17 cards, but enough. Enough to trash my credit, enough to make banks laugh me out of their offices. I had dreams, Faith. A little house, a stable life. She took that from me. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Why did you just disappear? Because Daniel, she said, finally looking up, her eyes meeting mine. Your father came to me. He said it would ruin the family, that it would destroy Gloria. He made me sign an NDA, a non disclosure agreement. Said if I ever spoke a word of it, they'd make sure I lost everything. He paid me off, a small sum, just enough to make me keep quiet. Said it was for family peace. He called it a settlement for a misunderstanding. It was blackmail, Faith. Pure and simple. The pieces clicked into place. Daniel wasn't just placating, he was complicit. He had known about Gloria's pattern for years and actively covered it up, silencing her victims. The misunderstanding with Laura, the pressure on her nerves with me, it was all a carefully constructed lie to protect Gloria and the family image. My father, the peacekeeper, had betrayed us both. I tried to warn you, Faith, Laura continued, her voice thick with emotion. I sent you a letter when you turned 18, just a short note telling you to check your credit. I didn't want to break the NDA, but I had to try. Did you get it? I thought back. A letter? I I don't remember getting anything like that, I admitted, a cold dread washing over me. It must have been intercepted. I knew who would have intercepted it. Probably, Laura said, a sad smile playing on her lips. She's always been good at that, controlling the narrative. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, faded photograph. I kept this. I want you to have it. It was an old photo, a blurry snapshot of a family vacation. Gloria, younger, smiling with her arm around a teenage Laura. On the back, in Gloria's elegant, looping handwriting, was a note. Some debts are meant to be inherited. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a personal failing, it was a twisted philosophy, a generational curse. Faith, Laura said, her voice firm, you can't let her get away with this. Not like I did. You have to fight. For yourself and for everyone else she's hurt. Her words, combined with the chilling revelation about my father and the photo, solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about my credit score anymore. This was about breaking a cycle, about justice. I had the evidence, I had a witness, and now I had a purpose. Empowered, I spent the next few days working with Detective Miller, providing her with every detail Laura had shared. The detective's expression hardened as she listened. The case against Gloria was no longer just about identity theft, it was about a pattern, a history of calculated manipulation and fraud. Within a week, formal charges were filed. The legal wheels were finally turning. I held the old photo in my hand, tracing Gloria's elegant handwriting on the back. Some debts are meant to be inherited. Not anymore. I was going to break the chain. The news hit the local media like a bombshell. Mother manipulates daughter's credit for decades, blared one headline. Another read, family drama turns criminal, identity theft allegations rock prominent local family. My full name, Faith Harding, was plastered everywhere alongside Gloria's. The prominent local family part was a laugh. Gloria had always cultivated that image, but it was mostly smoke and mirrors, funded, as I now knew, by my stolen future. The public shaming was intense. My phone, once silent from my family, now buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, messages from strangers, and even a few hateful comments on social media from people who somehow thought I was the villain. How could a daughter do this to her own mother? They'd write, clearly having no idea what they were talking about. Miles, bless him, screened most of my calls and helped me navigate the online vitriol. The pretrial hearing was a blur of legal jargon and hushed conversations. I sat next to the prosecutor, feeling a strange mix of dread and determination. Gloria, of course, arrived looking like she was attending a garden party, not facing felony charges. Pearls, a tasteful dress, her hair perfectly coiffed. She gave me a saccharine smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel was there too, sitting a few rows behind her, his face a mask of strained neutrality. My public defender, Jorge Ryan, was a man in his 40s with tired eyes and a slick, practiced demeanor. He approached me during a recess, his voice low and persuasive. "Ms. Harding," he began, "I'm representing your mother, Gloria Harding. I understand this is a difficult situation for everyone involved. My client is willing to discuss a resolution that could avoid a lengthy and painful trial. Perhaps we could talk about dropping the charges, or at least reducing them. You don't want to destroy your mom mentally, do you? Think about the family." "Destroy my mom mentally?" I repeated, my voice tight. "She destroyed my credit, my future, and my trust. She's been doing this for years, Mr. Ryan. To me and to my aunt. This isn't about destroying her. This is about justice." He sighed, shaking his head. "Family matters are best handled within the family, Miss Harding. A public trial will only cause more pain. For everyone. Especially for your mother. She brought this on herself," I stated, my resolve hardening. "There's nothing to discuss." He gave me a pitying look and walked away. When it was my turn to testify, the courtroom felt impossibly small and yet vast at the same time. I recounted everything, from the loan denial to Gloria's chilling admission to Laura's story. I showed the judge the photo with Gloria's handwriting on the back. My voice was steady, clear, devoid of the emotion that had plagued me for weeks. It was just the facts. Then it was Gloria's turn. She took the stand, radiating an air of injured innocence. "My daughter is misguided," she began, her voice trembling slightly, perfectly modulated for sympathy. "She's always been a bit dramatic. I simply helped her build credit as any good mother would. These charges are baseless. She is ungrateful. Ungrateful." The word hung in the air, a familiar accusation designed to make me feel small, to make me doubt myself, but it didn't work anymore. I met her gaze, and for the first time I saw not a mother, but a predator. I glanced over at Daniel. He was sitting ramrod straight, his eyes fixed on me, a cold, hard glare that I'd never seen directed at me before. It wasn't the placating, avoidant look, it was pure, unadulterated anger. He wasn't just disappointed, he was furious that I had broken the family's carefully constructed illusion. The day dragged on, a grueling marathon of legal back and forth. When the judge finally called for a recess, I felt utterly drained. I pushed through the swinging doors of the courtroom, desperate for fresh air. The moment I stepped into the hallway, a flash of light blinded me. Reporters. A dozen of them, microphones thrusting forward, cameras clicking. "Faith, how do you feel about your mother's testimony?" Ms. Harding, do you regret pressing charges? Before I could even process the onslaught, a figure shoved through the crowd. It was Zoe. Her face was contorted with rage, her eyes narrowed to slits. She didn't say a word, just spat at my feet, the small wet sound echoing in the sudden silence of the hallway. Then, her voice, a venomous whisper, cut through the air. You'll regret this forever. Mom will die because of you. Zoe's words, Mom will die because of you, echoed in my ears as the reporters swarmed around me. Miles, who had been waiting nearby, quickly stepped in, shielding me and ushering me away from the chaos. His presence was a solid anchor in the swirling storm of public scrutiny and family venom. The next day, the courtroom was packed. The air crackled with anticipation. Gloria sat at the defense table, her posture rigid, her face carefully composed. Daniel was in the same spot, his gaze still icy when it met mine. Zoe was nowhere to be seen, which was a small mercy. Judge Emerson Montgomery, a woman in her mid 50s with a reputation for being tough but fair, entered the courtroom. The room fell silent. She began to read the verdict. Each word was clear, deliberate. In the case of the state versus Gloria Harding on the charges of identity theft and fraud, my heart hammered against my ribs. I held my breath. We find the defendant, Gloria Harding, guilty on all counts. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. I felt a strange lightness, like a massive weight had been lifted from my chest. It wasn't relief, not exactly. It was more profound than that. It was vindication. Judge Montgomery then delivered her sentencing remarks, her voice resonating with authority. She looked directly at Gloria, her expression stern. Ms. Harding, your actions represent a profound betrayal of trust. Not only did you defraud financial institutions, but you systematically exploited the identity of your own child for personal gain, starting when she was a minor. This court recognizes the severe emotional and financial damage you have inflicted. She paused, then her gaze shifted slightly, encompassing the entire courtroom, but her words were clearly for me. Your daughter, Ms. Faith Harding, did not betray you. She survived you. She displayed immense courage in coming forward, not just for herself, but for others who may have been silenced by your pattern of deceit. When Judge Montgomery ordered Gloria to stand, Gloria's carefully constructed composure finally shattered. Her face, usually so serene, contorted into a mask of pure fury. No! This is outrageous! How dare you? She's ungrateful! She's ruining my life! The judge ignored her outburst. The court sentences you to As the judge continued detailing the prison sentence and the restitution Gloria would owe, two bailiffs stepped forward. When the first bailiff reached for Gloria's hands to cuff her, she let out a piercing shriek. How dare you! She screamed, her voice cracking, her elegant facade crumbling completely. She crumpled to the ground, a heap of expensive fabric and raw, unadulterated rage. Her pearls, which had been a constant accessory throughout this entire ordeal, seemed to mock her now, a symbol of the false elegance she had used to mask her cruelty. I watched her, expecting to feel something triumph, sadness, anger, but there was almost nothing, just a quiet, profound sense of release. Tears started to fall, warm and silent, tracing paths down my cheeks. They weren't tears of guilt or regret. They were tears of exhaustion, of relief that it was finally over, of a deep, quiet understanding that I was finally, truly free. The knot in my stomach, which had been there for years, finally loosened. In the weeks that followed the verdict, the initial media frenzy died down, replaced by a slow, steady process of rebuilding. I worked closely with Detective Miller and a victim advocate to begin the painstaking process of disputing the fraudulent charges and clearing my name. It wasn't an overnight fix, but every dispute filed, every account cleared felt like a small victory. Then, about a month after the trial, I received an email notification. It was from the university. My student loan application, which had been denied, was now approved. Not just approved, but they had also granted me a substantial scholarship recognizing my academic achievements and the unforeseen financial hardship. The combined amount was triple what Gloria had stolen. It wasn't immediate karma, but a steady, earned reward. It felt like my future, restored and amplified, finally within reach. It took a couple more months, but eventually the diligent work paid off. I logged onto a credit monitoring site, something Miles had urged me to do regularly. I typed in my information, my fingers trembling slightly. The screen loaded, and there it was, my new credit score. Pristine, powerful, and finally, unequivocally mine. The weeks and months following the verdict were a strange mix of quiet triumph and lingering fallout. My credit score steadily climbed, the fraudulent accounts slowly disappearing from my report. The university loan and scholarship had come through, securing my future, but while the financial wounds began to heal, the family ones festered. One afternoon, a letter arrived. The envelope was thin, cheap paper, and the handwriting was familiar, yet oddly cramped. It was from Gloria, from jail. I stared at it for a long moment, my stomach twisting. I hadn't seen or heard from her since the courtroom. Miles had advised me not to visit, not to engage. He was right, but the letter was here, a tangible piece of her. I tore it open. Her elegant script filled the page, but the words were anything but. It was a rambling, self pitying tirade. She blamed the judge, the biased media, and of course, me. She painted herself as the victim, a loving mother persecuted by an ungrateful child. Then, at the very end, the tone shifted, the veiled threat returning. You may think you've won, Faith, she wrote, the ink pressing harder on the paper, but you will pay in other ways. You will regret this. You will pay in ways money can't fix. I crumpled the letter in my hand. Even from behind bars, she was still trying to manipulate, still trying to exert control. It made me wonder how much of who I was, how much of my drive, my independence, my very being had been shaped by a woman capable of such profound, calculated betrayal. Was my fierce need for control and self sufficiency a direct reaction to her chaos? It was a chilling thought, realizing that even my strengths might be born from her darkness. The rest of the family fallout was equally predictable, yet still managed to sting. Zoe, true to her word, vanished. She moved out of state without a word to me, her social media scrubbed clean of any connection to me. I saw a few vague posts about toxic people and finding peace clearly aimed at me, but I didn't engage. She had chosen her side, and it wasn't mine. Then came the news about Daniel. About 2 months after the trial, I received an official looking envelope. It was divorce papers. Daniel was filing for the divorce from Gloria. Part of me felt a flicker of something, maybe pity, maybe a twisted sense of justice for him finally escaping her. But that flicker died when I saw the local news report online. Daniel had given an interview blaming the stress of the trial and Faith's accusations for the irreparable damage to his marriage. He publicly painted himself as the long suffering husband, a victim of my choices. He was still the placater, still prioritizing his image, even if it meant throwing me under the bus one last time. His cold glare in the courtroom hadn't been just anger, it was a prelude to his final act of betrayal. I was truly alone now, in a way I hadn't been before. No mother, no father, no sister, just Miles. And now, Laura. A few days later, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was a text message. Faith Harding, my name is Sarah. I saw your story in the news. I think your mother, Gloria Harding, scammed my grandmother years ago. I've been looking for answers. Would you be willing to talk? My heart leaped into my throat. Another victim. The twist Laura had hinted at, the pattern was real. Gloria wasn't just a one off identity thief who happened to target her sister and daughter. She had a history, a long, insidious pattern of preying on others, hidden behind her pearls and perfect veneer. Faith wasn't the first. But with Gloria behind bars, and with me now armed with the truth, she might just be the last. I found Gloria's letter again, the one filled with her venomous threats. I walked over to my small kitchen counter, lit a candle, and held the corner of the paper to the flame. The edges curled, then blackened, the fire slowly consuming her words, her accusations, her attempts at control. As the last corner of the paper turned to ash, I whispered, I don't owe you any more. A year had passed since the verdict, one whole year. It felt like a lifetime and no time at all. I was 20 now, and my life was unrecognizable from the one I'd been living before that fateful loan denial. I was deep into my studies, living in a small apartment near campus, funded by my scholarship and the part time job I still held. Every dollar I spent was mine, earned or granted through my own merit. It was a profound kind of freedom. The process of rebuilding my credit had been painstaking, but with Miles's constant guidance and the legal judgment, it had worked. My credit score was no longer just pristine, it was a testament to my resilience. It was a silent middle finger to every fraudulent charge Gloria had ever made. Laura and I had grown incredibly close. She was the family I chose, the one who understood the unique brand of betrayal I'd endured. We spent hours talking, not just about Gloria, but about healing, about moving forward. It was her idea, mostly, to start the blog. There are so many people out there, Faith, she'd said, who are going through this. They need to know they're not alone. They need to know it's not their fault. So we launched Unburdened, Reclaiming Your Financial Future After Family Abuse. It was a simple site, a place for me to share my story, for Laura to share hers, and for others to find resources and community. We talked about the red flags, the legal steps, the emotional toll. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people who had been gaslit, manipulated, and financially exploited by their own families. The woman named Sarah, who had messaged me after the trial, was one of the first to share her grandmother's story, confirming Gloria's long-standing pattern of scams. It was validating, heartbreaking, and empowering all at once. The silence from my immediate family was a constant, dull ache, but it was also a quiet blessing. Zoe never reached out, and I didn't chase her. Daniel, after his public blame shifting, had faded into the background of my life. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that his divorce from Gloria had been finalized, and he was living a quiet, solitary life. He had chosen his peace, and it had cost him his family. Then the news about Gloria came. It wasn't a phone call or a letter, but a brief mention on the local news. Her request for early parole had been denied. The judge, the same Judge Montgomery who had presided over her trial, had cited her lack of remorse and continued attempts to manipulate, even from prison. No visits allowed, no special privileges, no tears left to manipulate. The news didn't bring me joy or even anger. Just a quiet nod. The system, slow as it was working. I was sitting at my desk, drafting a new blog post about setting boundaries when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but the area code was from a major city. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hello, is this Faith Harding? A professional voice asked. This is Faith. Hi, Faith. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a producer for the True Crime and Consequences podcast. We've been following your story, and we're incredibly moved by your courage and the work you're doing with your blog. We'd be honored if you'd consider coming on our show to share your experience. My hand tightened around my phone. A podcast, a major one. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about amplifying the message, reaching more people, turning my pain into purpose. It was about taking the narrative back, not just for myself, but for everyone who had been silenced. I used to think karma would get her back someday. I thought it meant Gloria suffering, losing everything, just like she made me lose. But that's the thing about karma. It doesn't run on vengeance, it runs on balance. It ran on me getting my life back, stronger and more authentic than before. It ran on Laura finding her voice. It ran on other victims finding their truth. And I'm finally whole.